Hi, welcome. This is True Divine. I'm Jennifer Roberts. I'm coming at you with a writing on the wall, I suppose. So I've been thinking more and more about victimhood and thinking more and more in discussion with some great people that I'm forever fabulously grateful for in my life. And so I've been talking a long time now about looking back to the past and comparing it and starting to try and get ahead of people, get ahead of these dark evil forces, to be quite frank, in the places of power, in the places of power, in particular in the shadows. And to be aware with foresight, to actually use my gift and your gifts of intuition and foresight to actually start getting ahead. That's where the balance needs to be brought back of these people are way ahead of us. These shadows are really ahead of us, technology-wise, knowledge-wise, ancient wisdom-wise, birthright knowledge-wise. And there's some kind of veil of amnesia that we come through, like when the membranes break as we come through that womb. It feels like it starts there. That's like a physical representation of safety, of a world of knowing, and then, you know, bam, those membranes are ruptured, and there's this veil, this process we go through in the birth canal of this of the knowledge either not being able to transfer with us at all, or not being able to be in its entirety for sure, and that gets progressively more as we grow older. And then we sort of, for some of us, come back into this awakening period. But that's not what I really want to talk about. It's just to emphasize the point of where my thought pattern is going regarding looking back to the past in order to get ahead for once, rather than just rolling with the punches that these so-called powers that be, that even ourselves and individuals in our own lives give us, to be able to be so intuitive, so switched on, so connected with all aspects of ourselves and that's around us and those that are around us, that we can actually get ahead and not just dodge the punches even, but actually, you know, neutralize them before they're even formed. And so part of the way of thinking along these lines today is, and has been for a while now, is we need to look back at where victimhood came in. Now, I could talk about victimhood till the cows come home. It's like got a plethora of directions, particularly in spiritual coaching, that you can go in. But as far, let's look at the wider ramifications that we're living in now in the present. And psychically, you know, for a long time I've seen that it would be used to mold and try and push and corral and coerce the many into a direction. And so there's the truth and the lie in victimhood, and that we now in the present look around and we can now look back at the past and see that actions that have been taken to push the narrative of victimhood, to, under the guise of light, under the guise of friendship and compassion, encourage victimhood, where for a short time that was maybe necessary, where for a short time that was through good intentions. But the good intentions are hijacked, and they keep doing this with all of the necessary or good movements that are happening. So they encourage the endless AA meetings. They encourage the fact that once you're poorly, to an extent, you're always going to be poorly, or they encourage the victimhood in sexual assault of any kind or abuse. And so everybody was and is still frightened to stand up about that, because yes, these are genuinely awful things that people go through. These are genuinely things that need to be addressed and healed, transmuted, looked at, you know, picked apart and put back together, then let go of. But at the same time, to encourage it, people would be frightened to speak out in the past regarding this, because then it's very easy for the powers that be or people around you to make you sound like a bully, make you sound like a hypochondriac, make you sound like a somebody who is crazy by not going with the narrative. But as the many, we are now living in the ramifications of past decisions made to allow these systems and the beings within them to push the victimhood narrative, to shove it down the throats of the collective. And the ramifications that we are living with now is we now see that through the label, through the guise of light and kindness and compassion, this is one of the false lights, because through that has become acceptance, and it's acceptance of all. So where for a very short time that might have been beneficial to some sectors of society that have been deliberately held down, punished, abused, murdered, tortured, bullied, where that might have been a necessary thing to change the minds of the people, to start having acceptance for people's sexual preferences, you know, people's individuality, even down to the way people wanted to dress. But then we see that because we, through complacency, again, let it get away from us, we now have given those so-called powers that be and the deranged within our society, within the people around us, to have a safe label to hide under: victimhood. So now we see that, well, no, if you want to be accepting, you have to be accepting of those that are attracted to sexually abusing animals, saying it's their sexual preference. No, that's your ailment. That's your mental deranged ailment. People now having to be accepted. They're actually fighting for these inclusions in the LGBTQ. They're actually fighting to, you know, put a P in there, put a B in there for bestiality or paedophilia. And so this is where our complacency in the past has gotten us, our fear to speak out in the past has gotten us, and even to a point our judgments. Because first, to make the space for victimhood, we as the many had to give the space for judgment, for feeling better than, for judging others in the first place. That gave the space for so-called powers that be systems around us to push the feel-good factor of the ego when you're allowed to be in judgment of another, allowed to feel better than another, even allowed to go as far as to limit another's life for their skin color, for their sexual preference. And, you know, as the many, we ran with that. We fed our egos. That was our insecurities that did that. The chain effect of that was then there was the space for what we are facing now, victimhood. And because we have been previous to that living under such a soup of judgment, we were all, and when I'm saying all, I mean predominant numbers as movement of the collective as the flow. We were all ready and exhausted enough to realize that, damn, well, I can be judged also. And so all quite happy to accept the label of victimhood. Again, complacency, we ran away with victimhood, and we find ourselves now in a space where we are going to have to make decisions as the many, to not be fooled by the illusion that even the genuine sectors of society that have had to fight for equal rights, not because of, but regardless of sexual preferences, that now they genuinely have come into victory on many aspects in making people aware. But the people I know that fall into these sectors, these labels, whatever, do not reflect at all the propaganda that is being pushed now by what is mental illness. Nobody will change my mind. Nobody will, not even mental illness, let me correct that and say mental derangement, psychopathy, sociopathy, evil. Nobody will change my mind, but it doesn't matter what label or light these shadows try to hide under. And that's what they're doing. They take the truth and the lie. So they take the valuable, for a short period, valuable label in order to observe, accept, and then start to work on the victim role. And they hide under it. It's like they're putting costumes on. And so now even the people who are within that sector that had to fight for their rights, let's say, in the sexual preference sector, we see that we've got these little beasts running around in capes, you know, covering themselves up with the colours of a flag, under the guise of that they've been ignored too, their rights have been ignored too. No, sexual preference has got nothing to do with sexual abuse of any kind. Sexual preference is a completely separate thing to sexual abuse of any kind. So we have to get really discerning about what we are doing now. Which victim roles are we falling into now, and how many of our children in the future are going to look back like I am today, just pondering, thinking, where did this get in? And unfortunately, as the generations are going on, it's getting harder to spot these as the more obscure comes out and the more obscure gets accepted. It's getting harder to spot these beasts under these capes, hiding in the shadows of the genuine. It's getting harder to spot the artificial light, the false light from the divine light. It's getting harder to spot the divine darkness, the roots of ourselves, our identity, our groundings, than it is to spot the evil. And this is where we need to act in foresight, and this is where we need to act in strength, honor, and integrity. Because many of us now are old enough to be able to not even look at past generational debt, but look back at our debt and see that just like the economy is being predicted to crash, it's run itself into the ground because of decisions made, because of complacencies done. You know, we ourselves are old enough to look back and say, okay, we have debt and we need to get it clear. Nobody wants to pass over leaving physical debt to their children to clean up. Nobody. My friend died suddenly, and I didn't know what I could do to help until I felt his heart, and his heart, the only thing I could feel was, I don't want my old parents totally unprepared to have to pay for a funeral that is so expensive. And we all got together. I set up a GoFundMe and we all got together, and it cost the parents little to nothing. I wanted them to have nothing to do but to process and transmute the passing and build a new relationship in a very different way with their son that had passed over. Didn't want them to think of a penny. I didn't want them to have to worry about that. It's not how it should be. And so this is where we do need to look at ourselves now and realize that we do not want to be leaving this kind of, whatever you want to call it, karmic debt, spiritual debt, We do not want to be leaving the results of what we do and don't do now with foresight for the generations to come. We can't keep doing that. We can't keep building up this debt and just passing it on. It's not fair, and it's not honorable, and it's not acting in integrity. Right now, there is no space for victimhood. And that might sound harsh to say, but there is no space for victimhood right now. There's space for compassion, there's space for observance, there's space for transmuting the energies, there's space for action. There is no space in the light now for victimhood. That needs to be gone, because this is something that they are hugely using to infiltrate, and we are in a physical and spiritual war. This is something that they are hugely using to infiltrate and hide in our lives, in the many, and coerce without even firing bullets in this instance. Coerce people into submission, into change. And so this is just what I want to, I'm going to pull a few cards anyway, but this was just me. And I keep thinking I've got like these presentations, trying to learn that damn OBS program. I don't know. It looks like you're flying a plane. It literally looks like you're flying a plane. There's so many windows and buttons and pluses and minuses, and so I've got these awesome presentations in my Gemini head. I could show them this as I'm saying that, and I could do this as I'm doing that, and oh wow, that would be great. That would be visual. That would be, yeah, that would be fantastic, Jenny. Now get it to work. And so better still, instead of putting off ponderings, psychic ponderings, vision quests, whatever I do when I'm wandering off in the Gemini mind, rather than wait in, hopefully I will get good enough at OBS to bring you all that, what is it called, bedazzle, dazzle, frazzle. But in the meantime, better to just get the information out as I know how best, in a Gemini, Aquarius rising way, Gemini again way, talking, speaking it out, pondering it. If I can get live, I can get live. If I can't, I'm just going to speak to myself. But it's so weird. I've gotten to know so many of you now that even that used to really daunt me. I used to get dread. And now, as the strength card comes out, I can feel your energies just being in these ponderings, you know, while I'm speaking to myself into a camera. I can feel your responses, and sometimes it makes me laugh literally out loud when some of you write something and I think, I heard you say that. I heard you say that when I was recording this video. And that's a beautiful thing. So that's part of the good, the concentration on the good connections made. But those connections are made in strength and free speech and like-mindedness, like-heartedness, not the same, like. And that's where our strength lies. So that's why I'm just going to start trying to just put it out more. I'll keep working on OBS. And maybe, or maybe never, you're going to have a fantastic presentation. But for now, it's just me talking and pondering and giving you what foresight I can, that what actions we need to be acting on now, rather than rolling with the punches after they've landed. In some parts, landing the punches ourselves, and in other parts, knowing with such good foresight that we trip them up before they even throw a punch or even form the punch. I go with the latter. I prefer the latter. So that's why I'm looking at the spells that they're doing, the colours that they're using, and what is going to be the next thing. Now, as I've been speaking, particularly the victimhood mentality and those beasts hiding in the shadows of the victimhood of sexual preference, when really it's got nothing to do with sexual preference, and actually degrades people who've had to fight for just the same rights, equal rights, in spite of sexual preferences. This, I feel, is going to be really sparked off again. This is going to be one of the next things that they've had on fire, in the background, in the planning, in the works for a long time. And that's what it feels like. They've got these societal collective bombs that they've already primed, that they've already put the gunpowder on, that they've already, put the fuses, the connections to, and sporadically, in their timing, with their dates, with their codes, with their astrology, they are sort of put in they're flicking a match towards whatever bomb it might be. And this feels like one of those things, they've put the bombs in the corners of those parts of our consciousness, of those parts of our physical society. And it feels like, okay, so they're going to blow this one up next real soon. It's been in the background, ready, primed, prepared, like, what is it? Fail to prepare or prepare to fail. Well, they prepare real well. So these discussions are just sort of trying to get prepared and be ready and speak out preemptively, and either have a bucket of water to put on each bomb and disable it before it's even lit, or be able to squish it real quick, because we've already started the narrative of truth in that direction. And so this does feel like something in particular, with them trying to hide in the shadows of what has been a genuine thing that needed to be reformed, that needed to be rethought. And as I said before, looking back to the past of where this got in the societals and individuals' ego and insecurities, we were happy to be given the permission from the so-called powers to be through religion, politics, law, to be judgmental. And through that space, we created many, many victims of society. Through that space, we now have this victimhood, very very delicate, very distorted view on what we have to accept, what we don't accept. So now we've created, and we're living in this present, and this is what's coming, where we're going to see where these spaces have been filled up, and just how much and just how detrimental that is in these different sectors of society. And I feel one of the next big ones is this introduction and normalization, a next huge big wave, a next big push into normalizing that which would be described as the worst abuse to animals and the worst abuse to children. And so, and through that, we create the cycle even more victims. So it's for us right now to really stand for not being in judgment, no, taking away that space from them in the collective. So for us to get strategic and think about how we go forward with this, with the Two of Wands, we're looking at the world from a very different lens, from an observant lens, and really truly figuring out the next directions of how we hold this world in our hands, how we direct it forward. And coming from this point of view in particular, it would be that we stand strong. We know our embryonic state. We know that these illusions are not natural, and we cannot accept it. This is where we do really plan and have strategy. Now we bring in strength. Number 8, major arcana. So this speaks of a balance of the divine feminine and divine masculine, and a bravery to know what is divine and what is a really distorted falsehood of the divine. When we're looking at these shadows pushing the normalization of people identifying as an it, or you know, and making that even a label to be attached to. We're looking for the true light of the divine and the acceptance of the divine. The divine in nature naturally, and this might sound harsh, but this is where we're at, naturally gets rid of, or balances out at the very least, or neutralizes that which would harm what is natural, what is divine here. And so, you know, there's certain bugs that will help certain plants by eating and transmuting through the eating of certain fungus or certain spots on your plants. I don't know the names of them, but you know what I mean. It eliminates that, and we have to have strength in knowing thyself to be able to stand in a position of this strength and power and knowing thyself, and not being corralled and coerced into that judgment space that got us to where we are today in the present. That judgment space of who gives a flying fuck whether on a Monday you like sleeping with men, on a Tuesday you like sleeping with women, on a Wednesday, you know, happy hump day, you like sleeping with both at the same time, or, you know, every day of the week you're attracted to men, or every day of the week you're attracted to women. That's the issue that they're trying to fog this situation with. That is a non-issue that they're trying to push, and by pushing that, they're hiding under that shield of acceptance of all and victimhood. So it's for us to know thyself enough and trust each other enough to stand up for each other, to have equal rights and not be blurred, not have the objective blurred, not to have the conclusion brought about out of false light, out of victimhood. So we've got the Queen of Swords to come after the Strength card. Now, the Queen of Swords is a very strong character, air signs, you know, very well thought out, very constructive thinker, very cutthroat. And for some, this might come across as unloving, uncaring, not compassionate. But, you know, actually it comes from a place of compassion, of somebody who actually cares enough about the positions of herself or themselves or others in order to not worry about the menial, and in this case, the menial snowflake triggered feelings of victimhood, and nevertheless speak out, being able to, as a queen, be strategic with foresight, with wisdom and intellect, to know that actually a few truths here, a few hard truths, harsh words here actually save a heck of a lot more people, or actually save a heck of a lot more heartache. In your individual lives, as this you know, bomb is going off, so to speak, we're going to either witness it predominantly, and as empaths, we're going to have to work real hard to cut that out and keep a distance to it. Don't be absorbent of those energies, observant, not absorbent. But also to be able to stand in our truth, sit on our throne, and be quite clear about our position and what we will and will not allow energetically or physically, mentally or emotionally in our sphere. And to be quite cutthroat about that, not cruel, not evil, just straight down the line. We have to be so clear on our position of all of these now non-issues where these beasts are hiding in the guise of victimhood, whether it's in our individual lives or whether it's in the collective. We're dealing with it. We're not running away from it, we're dealing with it, but we are keeping our distance from it. We are observant of it, but not absorbent of it. What was I going to say there? What just came up there? We need to be able to also be truthful to ourselves and have strength in our own self and a balance in our own divinities, to start acting in foresight and get out of the mindset of, oh, it's just one bit of litter. If everybody just says it's just one bit of litter, then we're swimming in litter. And then we have those litter pickers like my daughter, who goes out with the kids most days and picks up litter. That's not fair anymore. And this is where, as individuals, as masters, as queens, as kings, gods, goddesses, however you want to connect with yourself, we have to be able to say, we can't just say, oh, it's just that we're letting slip in our individual lives. It's just that we're staying comfortably in victimhood in. It's just that aspect and part of our life, or with that person, that, you know, I'm just not ready in strength and in divinity to face that and be clear about it and start, well, yeah, that makes a difference. It's the same litter scenario. Energetically, you are connecting with the story that the so-called powers that be are deliberately putting out there. Energetically, you are creating the space for that to grow. Energetically, you're then projecting that out 10 feet or above, outside of your physical sphere. And also you're leading by example. Whether you have children of your own or not, in the physical or energetic, you are leading by example. And you are creating acceptance and space for either warriorhood or victimhood for those that have watched you or been around you. And so this is where we do see the importance, and finally grasp the importance of being the individual amongst the many, being an individual organism with many other individual organisms within. And even going down to the cellular level, particle level. And that's the same as it goes outside of our physical body. We have to be a part of systems. We have to be a part of a greater system than ourselves. At the same time, recognizing that we do have an impact on that system, and we do have a responsibility and role to play in our own lives by leading by example. And so it is a difficult time during this bomb period, because it does come down to a lot about relationships. It does come down to transmuting and really looking at old wounds, old sexual wounds in particular, whether that might be from wrong decisions made and regrets had, or whether that might be from a space of absolute torture and abuse. This is going to bring that up. And in our divinity, on our throne, in our strength, it is for us to act with foresight, integrity, and honor to self, in order to not run away from it anymore, but to be faced by it, to deal with it and cut it out, as the Queen of Swords does so eloquently, and sometimes abruptly. And so it might be that you look around during this time in your individual life, where you look around and say, you know what, this relationship mainly or mostly or all only resonates with the victim aspect of me, with the victim mentality of me in this aspect of myself. And the tough decisions be made within these energies in your individual life, to reflect the honor that you have for self, and the integrity that you have for wholeness and for healing and transmuting truly. So we've got the Wheel of Fortune after the Queen of Swords, and this speaks of, you know, the wheel is turning, and it's turning fast. And are we going to grab a hold of these, the horns on the bull? Are we going to act in our divinity and honor, or are we going to create yet another hijacked cycle for those that come after us? And this is our choice. We've got the Hermit card on the bottom of the deck, the number 9 major arcana. So from strength, with the major arcanas in this read, from strength, number 8, comes the number 9. From strength, we go into, with strength and with bravery, we go into this other field, this other plane, the inner world. the underworld, the darkness, and we take our light there. So it's where we're looking at the difficult things in our own life, and through doing this, we transmute and put out the energies that we are willing now to be honest with ourselves. Therefore, there is more honesty and integrity in the air. There is more honor in the air, that we are willing to look at and face past mistakes, past wounds. We are willing to not hold on to them anymore, but deal with them and cut them out, end them, finish that cycle. Stop creating this Wheel of Fortune recycling plan, and actually start creating and developing a destiny within, further back to self. Because then we go from the 8, the Strength card, number 9, the Hermit card, to the Major Arcana, which is the Wheel, the number 10, 8, 9, 10. Oh, this is a real turning point that I'm picking up on, and this bomb that I'm feeling within the victimhood mentality, hiding in the shadows of sexual preference, hiding in the shadows of equal rights as such. We see that for better or worse, the wheel is turning. And so for better or worse, we either use this as a pivotal point in our present, which will be looked back upon in the future as to, they really did good there. They saved us from more than we know. They maintained the human. They maintained the compassion and the humanity within the human race at that point. Or are we going to allow the wheel to be turned out of insecurity, out of ego, out of judgment, and find that in the future, we and children who have then grown up looking back and saying, damn, they really sucked at that. We can never get that back again. We can never get that humanity within the human race back again. We can never reclaim that DNA. We can never reclaim that species being what we see now today, the human race. So it's a huge pivotal point, and it's for us, as I said. I hope this all makes sense. It's a rambling, it's a reading, but not a daily reading, psychic reading of something I'm feeling coming up, and rambling through that, and knowing that a lot of you are going to know what I'm saying and pick up on it, and it needed to be said. And you will have your own extraordinary words then to spread that message out in your own way as an individual. And this is how we do things, we act. And so when I pick up on things like this, I do act. I'm either doing something behind the scenes, I'm either doing spell work or intent or going within or doing something, I act. And I think more and more, while this window is still slightly open, while this wheel is still turning and is able to be turned, it's like, on the old ships, the pirate ships, and the wheel on the ship was invented. Do you call it a wheel? The ship wheel? But you can see in your mind's eye, can't you? Like they're in stormy seas. And this Wheel of Fortune here feels like that ship. It's in a real stormy sea, and it's like you're having a winch, to hold it not only steady but change course to stop going into that rock. That's where we're in that struggle within this reading that I'm picking up on now. We're in that wrestle, and right now we're not wrestling enough. We're not wrestling the wheel back in order to be able to then change course. And sometimes I'm having like a vision right now of wrestling this wheel, and sometimes we do actually have to, like when you drive in a car, you've got the wheel, and something on the road kicks up or a dip kicks up. It's easier to jolt the car one way, not the direction you actually want to go in, but jolt it one way to jolt it back over. I've gotten out of many a field ditch doing that. So you you go into it first, like that hermit card. You go into the bend, into the dip, into the wave first. That's the hermit card, going within the darkness. Yeah, it's dangerous. You might get it wrong. But at the same time, because you've been there, because you've seen it, because you've faced it, you then have the impulse and the reaction to jolt it back, and you can change the course. That being the strength card, going into the Wheel of Fortune. I hope that makes sense, because that was just such an epic little trip visually there. But yeah, that's where we're at with this. And so much love, stay balanced and stay whole. I appreciate you all so much, and I'm sending so much love, happiness, smiles, because yeah, you know, we do rock, and I know a lot of you now, and I know that just like me, we've got that wheel, we get out of certain dips, and it's a little bit cool, feeling the danger, going in it, you know, facing it, and then bam, you look at your partner next to you. You know, my daughter more often than not in the car and says, I did that, did you see that, did you catch that? Let's be smiling at each other on the other side of these aspects of what we're facing right now, and saying, did you remember that? Do you remember when we were younger? Do you remember we did that? Do you remember we fooled them, thinking we were going with the narrative? We were just sneaking in. We were just doing what they were doing, infiltrating, hiding under the covers, and then bam, we all jumped up, and they jumped out the skin, and they're like, oh no, we're seen. Run for cover. So those are the kinds of stories I'm manifesting. That's the kind of intent I'm putting out daily. Join with me, do it. Let's even laugh about it now, before we've even done it, knowing we're going to do it, being warriors on the other side, laughing about how we did these certain dips and dives in life, and made it through, and not just made it through, but turned the wheel, changed the course, rather than having others change the course for us. Yeah, so that's the reading now. I love you all. See you all soon. If you want a personal reading, or if you want any spiritual coaching or any energy work, which are both epic, I must say, we go on these tangents and rants, and then we come back to, you know, riding the wave. You can book in at truedivinemedia@gmail.com, or you can get me on Facebook at truedivine44. Please check out the Twitter and Instagram and Tumblr and Rumble. The Rumble, I'm putting things up, I don't even know if they're showing up on there, but check them out. I'll get better and better at them as time goes on. So have a great day. Find your greatness.